I'm going to need the people, especially black people who voted for Biden, to lend me your antennas just for a couple of minutes, because I want y'all to explain this one to me. Now, it's interesting because Joe Biden, and the Democrats as a whole have been saying how it's been black people, especially black women, who are the backbone of the Democratic Party, and they got us in and they did all this, that, and the third for us. And then you have this statement that was put out by Joe Biden. And I wanted to make sure I screen captured this because I don't want anybody saying that I'm making this up. Although if I had just put a picture of him in there and did the commentary over it, I would have just put the link to this article down in the description below and you would have had to read it regardless. But I figured let me just do it like this so you can visually see it. Now, what I found also to be interesting, and I don't know whether it's going to be in this article or not, is that if you look at a lot of the cabinet picks that he's had so far, a lot of them that I'm seeing does not look like the people that he voted for, because let's be real here. Many of them are trying to get a job, but it's looking kind of bleak for many of them. I think I just read somewhere where they said him and Kamala Harris are supposed to be doing this all female whatever. It sounds like some kind of feminist power move. And I bet you it's not going to be many black women that's going to be up in there, maybe one or two. And that's about it. And then everybody else. And I'm not saying that to be funny. I'm saying that because I'm dead ass serious. As a matter of fact, I had posted on Twitter and said, my slogan for the next 4 years is, this is who you voted for. And I mean it. That will be my slogan for the next 4 years. But let me go ahead and get into it. It says, while Trump made surprising gains in other demographics, Biden made unexpected gains among white male voters in the election. Here is how he keeps them. And the first line says, President-elect Joe Biden has white men to thank. You know what it is? It's because they catered and pandered to, well, they didn't even cater to, because to cater means to actually give something. They pandered to black people for so long that it's almost expected that they're going to get the vote. But what's shocking to him is the white men. That's why he came out and made this statement, because he assumed that the white men were going to just stay on the side with 45. Let's see here. 2 years ago, I wrote that Democrats and progressives needed to appeal to white men and address the problems, particularly of non-college educated white men. Although the party may not have been so explicit about what the problems of this population are and the ways in which they would tackle them, at least at the presidential level, Democrats were successful in winning many of them over. Now listen to that. The person who wrote this, and this is an op-ed piece, as you can see, this is an opinion contributor. They said that they needed to find a way to cater to the problems, particularly of non-college educated white men, and to appeal to them. They've already pandered to us for so long. They know we're going to come out and turn out. But they needed to get them more so away from the Republican Party. And guess what's going to end up happening? Just by looking at this, they are going to go heavy or hard in the paint for those new white male voters, further pushing their base to the back like they've been doing for so long. That's why I'm glad I'm so neutral with this thing and I'm not on either side, because it makes my arguments and my points even that much more easier to discuss, and you won't see a tear fall out of my eye. 45 made gains among virtually every other demographic: black men and women, Hispanics, Asian Americans, and even white women. The one significant demographic in which his support cratered compared to 2016 was among white men, who make up more than 1/3 of the electorate. Biden made an impressive 11 percentage gain among white college educated men and a 6 percentage point gain among white non-college educated men, supposedly Trump's core constituency. Now, I have a question, and this is the perfect question to ask. To the black women out there that felt they had all this mouth, I'm talking about the Biden-Harris supporters, that said, oh, if black men vote for 45, he's a betrayer, he's a traitor, all the stuff that a lot of these, what Vicky Diller calls the League of Mammies, came out and tried to say about black men, saying they'll never forgive them and everything like that. I got a question. Do you think for one single solitary second that white women are berating the white men that did not vote for 45 and voted for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris? I've yet to hear them squawk their beaks. I've yet to hear that. And you probably won't hear it. And if it does get talked about, it won't be all over the media like some of these harpies have been doing the last, I don't know how many couple of weeks to a few months. This is a big deal in two ways. One, which has been widely noted, is that Trump made surprising gains among non-white Americans. The second, which has not been extensively examined, is the shift of white men to the former vice president. What does this mean? The first spells trouble for the Democrats. The second is unexpectedly good news for them. Some might ascribe Biden's gains to the simple fact that he is male and Hillary Clinton is female, or to his Scranton birthplace in America's old industrial heartland. Perhaps men are more prone to think kick the bum out regardless of the bum's party. Despite the massive women's rally the day after 45 was inaugurated in 2017 and all the pre-election talk about the white suburban women being key to Democrats' electoral hopes, the most important gender dynamic in this year's election occurred among white men. Now, listen, they are pushing this hard. I'm telling you, it's going to push more and more of the black people who voted for them way to the back. And we saw this coming. And the thing is, it's happening way faster than many of us anticipated. I thought it was going to be something that was going to just fester over time. But this is happening all within the same month of the election. At least when it came to 45, they didn't see the regrets until months, maybe a couple years down the line, maybe a whole year down the line. But now they're seeing it within weeks, days. How is this possible? Driving through red states or watching TV news, there were white men galore with 45 flags hanging out of their pickup truck windows and crowds of men in MAGA hats. These were real, but posters, media, and Republicans fell for this cliche. The Biden campaign can celebrate this year's shift, but they must not take it for granted. The new administration has a full plate, a pandemic, a flailing economy, a host of foreign policy changes, and much more. But it needs to address the problem that white, primarily but not exclusively working class men face. Now, if the people who are black who voted for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were smart, they would actually allow them to take on this weight, or I could say this burden. Reason I'm saying is because the more and more they keep putting you out there that you were the ones that sent them over, the more and more slings and arrows you're going to have coming your way and from a particular group. But something tells me many of their egos are so inflated, they're not going to allow themselves to do that. They're going to fight tooth and nail to make sure that they are the belle of the ball. In my 2 prior articles in my book on these men, Man Out, Men on the Sidelines of American Life, I pointed to a couple of indicators. The millions of men who have left the labor force, increasing health and mental health problems, isolation and disconnection from family and children, and what it means to be a man during the time of changing norms that predated Me Too. You know what's so crazy? Listening to this article and reading some of the stuff, it is clear to me now that they're trying to put white men into the position of where black men are currently at and have been at for so long. It's almost like they're trying to do a struggle politics type of thing, because they've been trying to do that for so long. They've been trying to put white men into a struggle position for so long because they're losing position, they're losing power. And that's what it all boils down to. And they have to find a way to get it back. Look at what's his name? Richard Spencer recently did. This guy was a staunch 45 supporter for like how long? And then a few months ago, he announced he was going to be a Biden supporter. He didn't do that just because. It was a reason why he did it. I just happen to make fun of him because it's Richard Spencer, but it's a reason why he did what he did. He didn't do it just because it sounded good to him. He probably felt he wasn't getting fulfilled through the 45 administration like he anticipated. So now he went to the other side. I don't know how that's working out for him now because we haven't heard from him since. And to be quite honest, I prefer it to be that way because the less we hear about him, the better. Many of these problems have only worsened during the last 2 years. In 2018 in October, when I wrote my first article on these issues, 71.6% of white men over 20 were not working. Last month, the percentage was down 70.5%. That's not much of a drop. That's like literally a little over 1%. While median inflation adjusted incomes for white men have gone up in the last 2 years, they were essentially the same during 45's first year in 1973, 44 years of stagnant wages. The latest CDC life expectancy statistic for white men before the woo-woo show them dying at an earlier age than in 2014, although black life expectancy remains lower. They just had to throw us in there somehow. They was like, well, we see white men are dying like crazy out here at a rate that is just unparalleled, but we have to also acknowledge that black people are dying even faster than we are, because they have to give themselves that confidence boost just a little bit. That one leg up. Suicide rates among white men are 3.5 times higher than for white women, and are significantly higher than among blacks, Hispanics, and Asian Americans. Well, that's of no surprise, because when it comes to suicide, they win the palm-colored men, especially. But as a collective, if this was an Olympic event, they would win gold across the board. Even the FBI stats back up the suicide stats to a T. By one key markers of social class, educational attainment, there is ample evidence that those with less than a college degree are more likely to be out of the labor force and in poor health. So basically, like I'm saying, reading through this, they're basically trying to talk about the struggles that white men are facing currently in America right now. I wonder how that Make America Great Again work for them. And I bet you many of them who are voting for Biden right now were on that MAGA train at one point, but they're realizing now more than ever it didn't work out for them. It didn't pan out for them. Just like how many years they've spent hating on 44, but he was doing more for them than he was doing for black people. But they didn't see it because he's an Oreo. It feels so emancipating to even call him that. Yes, they saw him as a black man, but many of us now, who can see clearly now, in Oreo. Let's see here. Democrats have taken for granted people of color and women, something they no longer do after this year's election. We beg to differ on that when they ain't changed. There are too many problems to name affecting both populations that the Biden administration needs to address, only beginning with the overarching scourges of racism and sexism. Democrats have long been advocates for women and minorities, as they should be. But as I wrote in January 2019, they are silent because they are implausibly unaware of such issues, or more likely less willing to highlight them because doing so will be deemed politically incorrect. The president-elect is a compassionate man and seems to recognize many of white men's problems. His administration should work on them, not only because all Americans deserve a chance at a good life, but also because keeping or expanding white male support is essential for Democrats' fortunes in 2022 and 2024. And you want to know what's so crazy? Reading that, he most likely is going to do that. I can see it right now. I can see that that's actually going to happen. And it goes back to the quote that I said I'm going to echo for the next 4 years to black people who voted for Biden Harris. This is who you voted for. Y'all going to be getting a lot of these type of stories coming out of the woodwork for the next 4 years. Now I have to go back and correct myself because this is a op-ed piece at the end of the day. Biden did not say that he thanks white men for putting him in the White House, but this author, this Andrew L.Yarrow, says that Biden should thank white men for putting him into office. But I am still, at the end of the day, because this article has made its rounds, depending on who got a hold of it and shared it and spread it out there. I wonder what the Democratic base, who we already know who that is, has to say about this. Will they counter it, or will they allow it to stay there? But like I said, this is also who Biden Harris supporters who are black, and I'm talking about them, I'm not talking about anybody else. This is what they're going to have to compete against for the next 4 years. This and a whole lot more. And I hope that they are prepared for that. Because I'm going to be honest, many of them are not. But I will say this, because I'm on neither side, it's going to be very interesting to see how all of this plays out. Because I'm curious at this point. I'm very curious at this point. And I'm sure many of you out there who are listening are as well. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll talk to you in the next one.